Okay. Okay, hello everybody. It's Brice Hancock and Sarah Zubrin from Mile High Continuing Care. This is an impromptu conversation. Sarah had a friend recently commit suicide, complete suicide, and we're going to talk about it. She's going to talk about it.
Technically, they passed away from their alcohol use.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this was not a suicide?
Not like I'm going to complete suicide, but more of a 5-year-long, I'm on the drinking suicide plan.
So it was like an overdose?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happened? What do you want to share? Who was it? Was it a friend?
It was somebody that I had been in a relationship with, and somebody close to me who really had struggled many years to get sobriety and struggled with suicidal depression. And, over the years, that's a conversation I'd had with my friend many times was, where do you find that will and that desire to just keep living when it seems like there's no hope and no reason to go on? Unfortunately, Alan left behind 2 kids. And, those are kids who now get to deal with, how do I live life without somebody who was a formative person in my life, and the reality of that being he just couldn't stop drinking to save his own life.
So had he been sober for a period? Was this a relapse?
Off and on, he had sobriety, and I think part of like what really was meaningful to me, or just really struck me, is that I was one of those people he'd reach out to and say, look, I did it. I got like 90 days and I got this. And so kind of like his cheerleader, and he would send me messages, I'd have no one left to celebrate this with, but I want to celebrate the fact that I led my first meeting, or I did this first thing. And it's important to point out that suicide comes in so many different forms, right? Because at the core of his disease was this like underlying belief or impression that he just wasn't lovable, or wasn't good enough, or he couldn't get right. And that, whether it's drug overdose or a gun to your head, the same feeling persists. And it's really important for us to acknowledge that, like, if you're struggling and you have those thoughts, there's absolutely another way to live. And I talk about this a lot in regards to my own personal recovery, is that suicidal thinking and suicidal behaviors have been part of my story. And what got me into recovery was this, like, I sat in my car and I just remember thinking, okay, I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to kill myself. And that was like my spiritual awakening. Like, okay, great. I'm going to go home and kill myself, or I'm going to find a new way to live. And that was like the turning point. But it's like, it's so often not talked about, the fact that people in recovery are 4 times more likely to die by suicide anyway. Just because we all come in sick, and it's really hard to get well without doing the work.
So that was like part of my story too. Was I had called a friend and I'd asked him if he had a gun, and ended up in a mental hospital. And for me, there was clearly some mental health stuff going on. I had this bipolar diagnosis, and I could play that card whenever I wanted. But while I was there, it was like, do I want to be a mental patient forever, or do I want to just admit I'm powerless over alcohol and work on it? So I got out and I worked on it, right? But it almost feels like we hate ourselves, but we don't really hate. I don't think we hate ourselves. We hate the addict. We hate the alcoholic and being powerless over stopping, right? And so you're a clinician. We can toss these diagnoses around. Like, I mean, in my experience, all alcoholics, especially when they stop drinking, are depressed. And it's a chicken and egg thing, right? Am I depressed because I'm drinking, or am I drinking because I'm depressed?
Yeah. And the numbers don't lie. When we look at suicide completion, 2/3 of everybody who completes suicide has some form of substance in their body. So it's like, it's really hard to tell the difference. Alcohol is a depressant, and depressed people are more likely to drink. So when we talk about like genuine co-occurring disorders, alcohol and depression are so hand in hand. It's really, there is no putting the cart before the horse. You just have to like work on it simultaneously.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, like myself, I feel, first of all, let me say I'm sorry that happened, right? It sucks. For myself, like I don't think I went to IOP, outpatient treatment, right? And it really helped. And I went back into therapy 2 years sober and dealt with a lot of stuff, right? That I probably wasn't ready to deal with right when I first stopped drinking. But I was lucky. I got to just kind of go to AA and IOP. It worked for me. I know it doesn't work for everybody. I feel really fortunate that I was able to come through that. I mean, it was touch and go for like 6 months. I was freaking out, certainly depressed, but I didn't have a clinician or a therapist to talk about it with. I didn't have that. So is that pretty much what you guys do when you guys do the therapy? Talk about that kind of stuff? How are you feeling? Are you having any suicidal thoughts? Are you having cravings?
Yeah. And that's just a small piece of really what goes on. That's why I like working with people over a long period of time, because like you can go to residential and talk about all this stuff for 3 weeks at a time. Right. And then you like open this box of trauma, negative core beliefs, and all these things about yourself. And then you have no one to help you pack that back up. So it's like a good chunk of our time is spent unpacking all the things that brought you to this point. You're super popular over there.
That's our admission line.
Oh.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so,
I'm sure.
I'm sure she did too. She's on that.
It's like I was a late stage alcoholic, and I know a lot of people when they get into treatment, physically a mess. Just, I was crazy. I was a late stage alcoholic. I was passing blood. I was dehydrated. I had these sores all over my body. I had gout. I had this layer of fluid in my stomach lining. I wasn't ready to talk about my childhood. You know what I mean? Like I was taking vitamins. Right. I was trying to heal enough to like pay attention, go to sleep. And I wasn't ready for any of that in my first month of being off substances, Like I said, I came back later and it was really beneficial. So I think that's, part of what you're trying to say is like, you got to unpack it slowly and you got to unpack it at a rate that's not going to like make it worse.
Right. You got to do it in with the structure and the safety. And I think like a big thing for us recovering people is that safety doesn't come in a week. It doesn't come in a month. It comes over a long period of time. And I'll see that, some people just say, no, I don't have anything going on, I'm fine, for 6 months in a row. And then one day they come in and they'll have this like major breakdown. And I think that's like, as a recovering person, like that's where the rubber meets the road for me. And having somebody who's there to walk you through that is even better.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to say about it?
I'd say the same thing to everybody, is that unfortunately in our recovery, we walk over bodies because it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And whatever you're struggling with today, right now, in your own personal journey, don't let this be the thing that takes you out. Suicide on an installment plan is still suicide. Suicide by any other way, there is an alternative to that. I've been blessed. I found that with therapy and treatment, and then 12-step programs. There's help out there. Reach out. I'm sure you as a recovering person, me as a recovering person, we will gladly talk to anybody at any time if it means a difference between being here tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Bye.